Well, hey everyone, welcome to another podcast of Welcome to Duluth. If you've had a chance to check these out before, you know that me, Mayor Roger Reinert, uses these as an opportunity to have some conversations with various folks in our community. You know, we've been looking at core city services. We've been looking at some critical nonprofit agencies in our community, talking with some inspiring individuals. And also, most recently, we talked about a large event. We talked about Grandma's Marathon. And since we had that conversation with Shane Bauer, we've had the air show. As we're recording this, Tall Ships is going on. So we are off to a strong summer here in Duluth. But today I have the pleasure of having Russ Salgy with me, and we're going to talk a little bit with Russ kind of about who he is, some of his longtime work with the Valley Youth Center. There's some new news there with the Valley Youth Center having a merger with another organization, and of course we will finish with our favorite questions about some Duluth things, or I guess as the new ad campaign is, talk Duluthy to me. I'm not sure how I feel about that. But. So welcome, Russ. Thanks for taking time to join us. So,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Duluth guy.
Yeah.
Right? Denfeld guy.
Yeah, West Duluth, born and raised. My mom still lives in the house that I grew up in, so still have roots there.
Okay. Is there still like markers for you on the wall?
Yeah, probably.
Toys in a room that's Russ's
for sure,
when he comes home
trunks,
to stay.
Yes, for sure there is trunks full of Russ's stuff, and all my brothers and sisters, we all have our rooms that don't have beds in them anymore, but certainly have a lot of our stuff as growing up.
Was it traumatic when it got repainted and like you lost all of your...
No, I think we all go there, for the different holidays, so it's still pretty homey when we all go.
So what neighborhood did you grow up in?
I would say it would be Upper Denfeld, so if you think 46th and where Denfeld is, right below the railroad tracks, Corey Park, for example, that was a lot of play spaces for us growing up before it was a park, and more when it was probably still making caskets. But so that area.
So that's master level Duluth. If you know the difference between lower and upper Smithville and lower and upper Denfeld.
Yeah. So grew up there. Went to school at MacArthur. Just missed the cutoff for West Junior. There was a consolidation back then. And we went to Morgan Park, and then Morgan Park came to Denfeld, so that was the pathway I took. Which, you got to know a lot of people from those neighborhoods that I probably wouldn't have been able to know before. But, UMD, and graduated UMD. It took me 6 years to get the 4-year degree, but I did get it.
You got it. That's the important thing.
And all the while, working at the Valley Youth Center. So Valley Youth Center has been a part of my life for, since going there.
So did your connection there start in high school?
The connection starts, earlier. Before the school consolidation and the Morgan Park piece of it, it used to be at the Welch Center across from Memorial Park. So I would go there as a kid in my grade school years, having the towel under my arm and the swimming and the gymnasium. And then when the consolidation happened, they built out the Valley Youth Center from the old machine and wood shop. So there was about, I'd say probably 25 to 3,000 square feet where, pool tables and ping pong tables. And then we had all the play spaces that the school had. There was the swimming pool, the gym, there was a theater. So when I got into my teen years, workable years, it's actually the Workforce Development Youth Employment Services that got me started.
Wow.
I could work summers at the Valley Youth Center, and then through the eligibility 16 through 18, I was part of that program. And then when that graduated or aged out of that program, that's when the Valley Youth Center kind of offered me a job, and it would, it worked with my school schedule, get up, go to UMD, come home from UMD, go to the Valley Youth Center, and rinse, repeat for 6 years.
So, has that been your entire career?
It has. I didn't think it was at the time. I went to school for city planning, so city planning administration. I had a mentor, Len Simich, who at the time was working for, I believe, Arrowhead Regional... AEO, the Arrowhead Regional Economic... Yes, yeah.
AEOA.
Well, no, not AEOA, the other one.
ARDC.
Yes, that's the one. I was thinking Arc Northland in mind. It wasn't. But, so... I originally went into college just thinking I wanted to be like an English teacher or something. I learned real quick that I didn't have that in me. So anyway.
What about stand-up comedian? Because like this guy, folks, is funny. I don't know if I'll bring it out in him today, but.
Well, we'll see. But so then, so I always thought I would get into more of the city planning and those types of things, which has helped me not only in the nonprofit life, but there are some boards and stuff that I've helped out with. So it does, I haven't reached too far from it.
Well, there's always opportunities at the city.
Yeah, right?
If the line you've been in for many, many years now, for some reason doesn't pan out, like, come and give us a look.
Well, I got about 10 years left, so maybe we'll see.
So how about a family? Triplets?
Yeah, my wife and I got married in 97, and the stresses of life, tried to have kids for, a number of years. It didn't work out. So we did end up going the in vitro route, but we actually chose an option to go to India.
Oh.
So, there was options locally, and I think we exhausted all those options.
Yeah.
And then down in Minneapolis, St. Paul area, for half the price, we could go to India.
Okay.
And so there's a pretty long story there, but I know my kids, they get a little nervous if they hear about the story. So anyway.
Some other time.
Yeah. So we ended up over there. They can give you a little bit more medication than they do allow in the States. And then there's a chart that they show you on eggs and fertilization, where there's a chart where, 4 eggs is really the maximum you want to go to, because then mortality rates start to skyrocket.
Okay.
So we went over there and worked out for us, and they are fraternal, so there were 3 of the eggs, and we had 4 did take. So
other siblings?
Yes, a younger sister. They're all girls. Even the dog who just passed away was a female too. Yeah. So that was about 10 years later, and just life happens, and lucky. Things happen in life 10 years down the road. So now I've on entering 5th grade. So we're kind of recycling. You got to do the Disney stuff. You got to do the sports stuff. And so we're not going to be empty nesters.
Are you able to use the old VHS cassette tapes for?
Discs, but we have the CDs, and they are in there a lot. The young one loves to watch the older ones when they were kids. And, so it is part of our life when we come home for.
And then how old are the triplets?
Just turned 19. So they finished their first year of college. Of course, I had to bet they'd be home by Halloween, but they proved their dad wrong.
All right.
Got one at the University of Minnesota in graphic design.
Okay.
And then one down in Mankato that wants to be a pilot, aviation. Right. And the other one is biochem. So really, really a smart. I have no idea where she got that from, but
such a group of slackers.
Right. So, and then they all have the different personalities. I think if you were to meet them individually, you wouldn't think that they were sisters. They do look alike, but because they're triplets, that's where the confusion for teachers would be, is just because they would think they're sisters and rattle all their names, but they're really quite different people.
Oh, interesting. So, that's got to be interesting as a parent to see that connection then grow and evolve.
Yeah.
And as they come into the people.
Well, they were 2 before I was ever left alone with them. So, and you could see back
You
then,
work with kids.
Right. Well, yeah. But you could see back then, we had this armoire that was very tough to open the doors and the drawers, and they would do their little communicating, and all 3 of them would be working together. Kind of looked at my wife at that point and said, "Oh, this might be a challenge." And, some of my physical limitations, they knew under chairs and under tables was probably...
They were safe? Wow, so you're like, all right, I'm going to check back in a few years and let me just tell me how this is going.
Yeah.
So away from Valley Youth Center, and we'll get back to talking about that mission and that work. What does Russ do to stay happy?
Well, and growing up in West Duluth, single parented, a lot of the programs that help families out to meet basic needs, we were on. So for me, it's really been, recreation as a kid. The different opportunities, whether it was Valley Youth Center or Wealth Center at the time, the Boys and Girls Club or the city back then, you really had a network that helped you replace some of the, for me, it was a male role model. So the coaches and the people that took, if you had a teammate, their, parents and stuff. So you really, in my steps, I was able to utilize a lot of other people's parents for, and my mom did a great job for sure. But, so for me, it was sports, get you in practices and games and, keeps you out of trouble.
Yeah.
So for a lot of my growing up years, it was really about that recreation. So even now, and if I had a Mount Rushmore of recreational people, Angelo Simone, who's been at the Value Center since I was a kid, 40 years in the business, and we were both mentored by Sonny Albach, a longtime city recreation guy, and then probably Carol Hahn, and then then you get into more of the famous Disneys, these people that put play and happiness above other things. Really sounds to where I come from, because I know recreation. And if we have enough happiness, it can deflect a lot of the stuff that you see, the negativity, and grounds you to make solid choices. So for me, that recreation piece, and it's been a part of even what I do today, bocce, bowling. I do my best to play golf, fish pretty well. So, just a lot of the different things. I always look at it and say, do I have too many hobbies? Because everyone comes with its own expense.
Yeah, right.
I just consolidate and do one.
Like kids, you can only give so much attention, right? So,
right. So for me, recreation is pretty high.
Okay. And fun to hear you mention Ange, of course, and then Sonny, both of whom are still out there, still active, still caring about kids, still active in the community. So.
It's funny, Ange was telling me this morning, his grandson was watching Sonny's grandson. They were playing t-ball on the other opposites teams, but how they're still connected and still stay in touch.
One of the most something that I went to a few years ago that was so fun and enjoyable and funny was the roast for Ange. What was the milestone? Was it the 40-year mark? Or
that was his dad. That would have been his 40th year of service. So he's over that now. But and there was a lot of stories. Table tennis was the savior of.
I'm still waiting for the movie to be made about the Irving Club, the table tennis team,
Duluth champions to state champions to national champions. It's someone that right now. A mentee of Angelo's now does, they call him the John McEnroe of table tennis. He does the commentary for the U.S. table tennis team.
And he was back that evening, right?
He shared some stories.
I love the part. I mean, it just brought all these images of, every underdog movie we've ever seen, of the story about the kids showing up and not the right, and then here were the elite teams that were all pressed white uniforms with the matching tennis
paid
shoes.
Coaches, and they're doing this stuff in the corner. You got Ange and Sonny, and kids are in jeans and sneakers, and they're beating them, and how's it going? They I think one of the sayings is they never really remembered them when they showed up, but they always remembered when they left. That Duluth team. So.
I love that. Okay, somewhere out there as a documentarian or a movie maker, you got to tell this story. So Russ, talk a little bit about Value Center and the history and the mission. And I think it's one of the things in our community that people know about, especially on the western side, in the western neighborhoods, but may not know a lot about, right? So it has name recognition, but unless you personally engaged with it, you might not know what Value Center is all about or where it came from. And then we can talk a little bit about where it's going.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there about knowing, and we really don't have to do a whole lot of outreach, especially in the western Duluth neighborhoods. And it's going to be your standard after-school summer recreational programming. If you think Boys and Girls Club as the Coke and YMCA as the Pepsi, we were Shasta. Same kind of stuff. We're different label, but we're doing all the same stuff. You're gonna get the same. And you know what? When you're at a picnic, you're diving into the Shasta, aren't you? The adults get the Coke and the Pepsi, but we get the Shasta.
Six pack, entire cooler of Shasta.
So kid-driven space, kid-driven around recreation. There was a point in time where, we've always helped kids with homework, especially if the teachers are reaching out. But we do strive to just, let's have kids have fun. Let's have them playing. We've got your different games that you have there. So it's really recreation with positive adults being the behavior changing dynamic for some of these kids that just, their lives are very tough from the time they get up in the morning to the time they go to bed. So if we can get as much happiness in their lives, that's the goal. So the Value Center for me, I went there. When I got to work there, I could share with, kids, but it's always the activity would change. Back when I grew up, a lot of floor hockey. Now it's a lot more basketball. So the sport or the recreation changes. Outdoor recreation, we were doing that. I think now there's this real movement. We got to get kids back outside with phones. So important there. So we're just value center. Now, some of the thing that sets us apart that, in the lens today is a little different is we're not sign in, sign out. So there's a little bit when parents call, hey, I heard about your program. Well, we do have, 7 staff, but we could have 80 kids, so we're over here or we're over here, but we don't stop the kids from going out, say, and using the playground or, enjoying the neighborhood either. So sometimes there's that higher accountability of which we do steer them to talk to the local schools or YMCA with the Key Zone program. That's that sign in, sign out. Another piece is being, youth focused and kind of youth centric. Two of the main things that you're daily trying to juggle and manage are the expense, because it's expensive, and then the risk management end of it. You got other people's children, the most valuable possession. You want them to experience things, like outdoor recreation, the rock climbing to all this stuff. Well, there's danger in there. So, but I will tell you, when we work with the sailing groups in Duluth, and you got the roughest of the rough kids, and they're in those sailboats, and there's a gunnel, and then there's Lake Superior, you have their attention. They are, and they're, the experiences are crazy. One of the pictures we have on our Facebook pages is we were kayaking underneath the lift bridge. And these kids, I mean, it's just the breadth of what they're experiencing. They're never going to see that again. They got to be a part of it. So really tying in that.
And that you're helping kids connect to, it's such a core part of our community. I applaud you for doing that. I know the different sailing clubs have been really active in this space, but I'm always attuned to how many kids in our community can't swim, don't swim, because they don't easily have access to water and to learn how. And yet we pride ourselves, on being the Lake Superior community.
Well, and the rivers and the streams. I mean, they can walk within probably 15 minutes of all their houses, and there will be water
somewhere.
Yeah, so we do work heavily in the winter months at the YMCA. The Superior Y has a little bit better time frame for us to get the kids over there. So there's some purposeful swim lessons. This is where we talk about risk management versus risk elimination. Management, let's learn them. Well, first of all, let's be taught to recognize the warning signs as adults if they're struggling. Let's get them to learn to swim. Let's get life jackets on them, have the proper life-saving gear, versus we're not going to go there because it's a hazard. And then now when we get to talk a little bit about where the future's going, there's some opportunities now where the kids can learn to swim too. So swimming is huge. When we first started and we were in the old West junior high building, they had a pool and we managed the pool. So there was a lot of swimming within the not only Laura MacArthur, but St. James that was right by there, now Stella Maris. So a lot of kids were coming through and learning to swim just in their practices. But swimming is it's a basic need, in my opinion, around Duluth. So.
And I think, you've touched on this a few different times, just the ability to help kids who might not otherwise economically have the opportunity to be engaged in a water sport, to get out into the woods. You talked about being on the sailboat and the gunnel in the water. Well, I mean, that's just a lack of opportunity. So you're anxious, you're uncomfortable. Which is, actually a good thing. We should all be uncomfortable at times. That's when we grow. But for these kids, you're helping them connect with core resources that are everywhere around, but probably are scary because they're not things they've been introduced to before.
And it just triggered another story. And, Hartley Nature Center works with us a lot. Come on, VYC, bring your kids up. We'll do some programming. And we did some winter programming, so you're in the middle of December where it starts to get dark, 3:34. So by the time we're getting there, it's dark. And it's like, okay, kids, let's, come out of the bus and let's go do this trail. And nobody moved. I don't go in the woods at dark. That's not what we do in my family, Over time, at first it was just outside the bus. Then, and eventually through working with their staff and our staff, we got the kids to experience, flashlight stuff and recognize it. So, but the growth is there, but you do have to make sure that they feel safe. And it does work for academics too. The simple games like we have a billiards table or the table tennis, when they start out, the ball's flying all over the place. They're not holding the paddle right. And, but with coaching, with time, ball staying on, serves going in. Now you have a rally. Now you have a good match or a good game. And it's the same thing with spelling or math. You just got to work at it. You can't just be instantly good at it.
And build some confidence.
Yeah,
right?
so there's a little bridge there when we are talking.
Do you see a lot of your kids become either older as they get older, become mentors, become staff? I mean, sort of that paying it forward.
Yeah, and that's been the model, in our history. I came to the Valley Youth Center. Angelo came to the Valley Youth Center. I would say 90% of my staff, came through the Valley Youth Center. So there's a real, well, in Angelo's setting, being kind of the in some of the site leadership, he's going to be able to talk to these kids at a level because he knows their mom, their grandma, if they aren't going to listen to us, they will listen to him because he knows who in their life they must listen to. But then, my staff being a lot of times in their shoes can really bring them and talk some real stuff to get it out, whatever's making them be in crisis. And one of the shining stars,
because they've probably lived it too.
Oh, absolutely, they lived it. And then one of the shining stars that we're trying to retain and promote just got her social work from UWS. So from the time she started in kindergarten through MacArthur and Denfeld, now she's got a degree. So we have one that's got a degree that we're just like ecstatic, young leader of color. She's going to go a lot of places. She pretty much can go where she wants, but we're trying to keep her in the house. Because, looking over my shoulder, like I said, I got a 10-year runway. I'd love to hand it off to someone that's lived and breathed it.
Good leaders are always grooming the next set, right?
Succession is very important.
Yeah, for sure. So before we talk about the exciting next chapter, physically, where has Valley Youth Center been over time? I mean, currently you're co-located with Laura MacArthur.
Yeah, we've always been in the MacArthur School when we became the Valley Youth Center in 1983. Like I said, we took over the machine and wood shop. But we always knew that there was other neighborhoods not being served. We were at Stowe prior to Gary Reck kind of doing their redevelopment and really established a great program.
Yeah.
We were just kind of out of what was then called the shack. It was a warming house. But we would send some staff over there. And this would probably be in the early 90s. When I did leave the Valley Youth Center in 97, I got the directorship at the Copeland Community Center, which at the time was the old Harborview neighborhood, Harbor Highlands now. So I was there throughout that redevelopment stage. And then I always stayed in ties with the Valley Youth Center on their board and, worked with the leadership there, Angelo, of course. And then there was an opportunity for a merger back then. So we actually merged all our administrative stuff. So I was kind of managing 2 sites and 2 teams. With the redevelopment of the Harbor Highlands, the need or my ability to grant right for the number of kids, kind of hit a ski slope that was downhill. So then we came back to just the Valley Youth Center. And what we always, in our name, we always had Valley Youth Centers with an S because we just know just to push us to be in other neighborhoods. And then if you were to look at the funding structure, as you well know, aware of this, things are tough. Budgets are tighter. So,
and the Valley Youth Center is a nonprofit?
Yeah. So I think if you would take a snapshot of our budget, when I was still working, side by side with Ange in the 89, 90s, we were getting a lot more funding from all of the foundations and United Ways. And I think we're getting county money and city money. And, through the years, all the way up until today, it's scarcer. It was never big. Here's a big chunk, but 2,000-3,000 a year, and spread out amongst all of us, so, and here again, it was a downhill ski. And as the board and I were, looking at things, we want to make sure there's a VYC 40 years from now. How do we make that happen? What is it going to look like? And that's when, mergers started to be the conversation, and our first merger conversation was actually with the Boys and Girls Club. There was some, funds that the state had delegated to Boys and Girls Clubs to get into other neighborhoods of which this would have qualified. But we wanted a longer runway, and I think there is something about being inherently Duluth too. Moline Machine, for example, or Sammy's Pizza. Some of these places they're not nationally affiliated. That was a little attractive. So, but I think it was the timeline. We started having conversations in maybe September, October, and it really had to be done by a February time. So it was less than a year, and we just thought, now's not the time. Maybe we'll reconnect down the road. But then, you know, the conversation with Larry in Northwoods,
Yeah.
he had approached the conversation with me, I think it was like a lunch at the Valley Youth Center, and he's like, I've got some money, but it has to be Northwoods, you know, connected. So
Yeah.
how do we form this partnership?
Yeah.
And we had been working with them in partnership, like with garden beds. Well, garden beds, you know, it's maybe a $1,500 bill a year.
Right.
He was thinking, you know, we can do a little more than that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, and I really said, you know, we say merger, but it's an acquisition. You know, they're very, you know, they've got a campus by UMD, they got a campus out west, they have a cabin, you know, so they have resources, and they have their own foundation that's got some money too. So we got to talking. I said, you know, why don't we just, you know,
Become a part of.
right, merge or become acquired, you know, and I knew kind of my role would change. We really had to flush out two things. One is, can we do what we do now under you, or will there be can't do's?
Yeah.
And we really didn't find much, because they are also recreation based for the change in behavior.
Okay.
Different from the former Woodland Hills, which is a little bit more corrections based.
Yep.
But they do have residential kids, you know, they do hold, they do have day treatment kids. So we got kind of put under their community services. But to get back to what we were saying, you know, so when the Valley Youth Center, you know, the conversations were, we also want to make sure that this isn't, you know, the current CEO, Larry Pajari, who used to be a Valley Youth Center director back when I was in that senior high school. I think he had just graduated from UMD. So you know, we got
the organization.
Yeah, and you know, his path took him to, I think, TBI and then Northwoods. But anyway, so when we reconnected, we just wanted to make sure the Value Center is going to be a priority past Larry too, because you know, a lot of things that would happen in our industry, whether it's youth development or nonprofit or even just places, when you lose people that have all of that knowledge and there's none replaced back, you know, you lose. So we just want to make sure, if you take Value Center on, it's for the long haul. So 40, 50 years from now, there's going to be a Value Center, and that.
Will the name stay, or will it?
We use It's Northwood Children's Services. So now when I'm out talking, I work at the Value Center, but now we're a part of Northwood. So I make sure that it's aware.
Okay.
There's some branding that'll happen, and we may shorten just to VYC, and you know, but we'll always be the Valley Youth Center by name, to the kids, to the community. That's just that our payroll.
And retaining the Laura MacArthur co-location?
For right now, you know, there's some opportunity there. We have what we had like to say was a teen center on Grand Avenue right next to the American Legion.
Yeah.
So that building came to us, and we had enough to enter the mortgage to make the payments for a certain number of years, but we never had the money to do anything with the building.
Okay.
Well, when the merger happened, they had the money just to pay the building off. So now we have a building that's paid off. So now we can start to look at the redevelopment of it, turning it from the dry cleaner to a teen center. Yeah. And there's some talks.
It's very sad. That's where I got all my uniforms done. So, but I was happy for you. So.
And then some family services too. Because there is a family services component to what Northwoods is doing, and we were starting to get into that with the family service collaboratives with the county. So there's some things that we think that the kids come to the Value Center, having the families come down to the Value Center and get some services is a slam.
And great location, you know, with potential redevelopment of the Kmart site and that whole, you know, I've seen
excited.
a proposal that would be more residential with some retail. So then having that footprint there helps families that are going to be in that area have a place to connect with as well. So.
Yeah, and some of the dominoes that came to play that fit nicely, the MPCA and the EPA, they have some dollars for brownfield, and really turning brownfield spaces into community spaces is one of the things they have. My vision for the spot, you know, like I said, teen center in the afternoon, a community center for families during the day, but then there's some parking between the building and Grand Avenue where I would like to see that be more like a stall for some food trucks and some picnic tables, and put the parking in the back, but have some of that street feel.
A little more active.
Yeah, you know, like we see in some of the smaller towns where that, what their downtown looks like or their business district looks like. It's driving social traffic out there. So.
I mean, and I think you'd talk to many leaders at City Hall who would say West Duluth, Spirit Valley, and then our far west neighborhoods are really growth corridors within the city. You know, you're seeing the investment in Sofidel, you're seeing that Amazon distribution center. And I think you're also going to see population growth in that part of the city. So then, like exactly what you're talking about, you know, one of the great things about Spirit Valley is you have kind of that Main Street feel. Yeah. So then to be a part of that, but then also be in that proximity where folks, whether they're in, some of our farther west neighborhoods or in the Denfeld neighborhood, can easily get to you.
Well, and the pattern or the model at Lincoln Park, I mean, I have people that come back now and just say, I cannot believe the walkability of Lincoln Park and how vibrant it is.
Yep.
And that's what we're hoping to pull out West Duluth. So we're probably on that more infancy stage.
Yeah.
This is getting into my West Duluth Business Club president lens, but meeting with the city and core investment area, and we're, first thing we did was try to clean up the banners. We had some ratty ones flapping in the wind, so now we got some good banners up. We got Spirit Valley Days coming here at the beginning of August. But we're really trying to bring that feel. And, one thing that was brought up to me by someone at one of our meetings is, you have the Cross City Trail, and you got all the big trail system. There's really a commerce trail that starts Commonwealth all down Grand Avenue into Superior Street, down through here into London Road. You could, there's a thing that would be a huge map just to show tourists if you want to check out all the different, and that's, sometimes too I think about this, I don't know why, but maybe it's
you're the planner.
I just think of your job with like core services, when you were out talking about just what we need in Duluth, I'm thinking Chambers Grove to Lester Park, the International Airport, to the airport down on Park Point. That's a lot of stretch of road, a lot of stretch of infrastructure.
Miles wide by 8 miles wide,
and it's like
500 miles of streets, 500 miles of utilities.
And the purse that you have to work with, the mandates that come with that, and I'm just thinking, wow, that's a juggle.
Well, okay, so Planner and You, this is my new favorite book, so I'll share it with our viewers too. Strong Towns by Chuck Marone. Really talks about how cities have evolved from World War II to today, and how it's really a unique chapter in the history of communities, which goes back thousands of years. But that built environment, the infrastructure, kind of the building all the infrastructure without thinking how are we going to replace it or maintain it.
Right.
So now here we are 75 years later, and guess what? It's expensive. So that's a whole other conversation.
Right on your lap.
Yeah. So are you excited about the merger with
and so
and should families and kids and everyone be excited? If I'm nervous because I feel like Valley Youth Center is going to go away, and it's been my safe place as a kid or a single parent or even as now an adult, and I went there, what's the pitch for no, this is a good thing?
Well, and so far it's been a soft opening, if you will. We have a backpack giveaway Thursday, August 28th, I believe, where we'll try to get some media coverage, try to say now we're a part of Northwoods Children's Service, but we've been merged since April. And I think if you look at the kids coming in the center, the parents coming into the center, they did take a whole week to give us a whole new look, almost like, the Homemaker Show, where they came in and added a bubble hockey, added air hockey, gave us a new pool table and pong table and foos table and all new furniture.
Did you get a Keurig?
Keurig's still an old one. But most of the kids' spaces and a brand new fresh coat of paint,
Nice. Really nice.
So we got and it was remarkable how the attitudes of the kids changed. We used to have the kids come in from after school, and we had an old donated pew from a church, and that became the big heaping pile of jackets and backpacks.
Yeah.
Well, in the corner, they made a nice bench with some hooks, and kind of when the kids were let in, we were explaining, this is where your stuff goes. And to see a kid tell another kid, oh no, pick that up, it goes over there on the hook. And now that's when the behavior changed, because peer-to-peer is huge, especially in the type of kids. So that was a nice feature. The biggest gain on our end, well, a couple of big gains, the play spaces for the kids. Mm-hmm. Northwoods has a cabin. So this summer we get cabin time for 2 days. These kids wouldn't have a cabin. And that's pontoon boats and kayaks and volleyball and
woods and water.
Woods and water and learning how to swim. And the other piece, they have a high ropes course too. So twice a week we get to go to the West Campus and do a high ropes course. We don't have to go to Ely's Peak all the time now, so it's right up the road. So the inventory of play spaces and play opportunity, and they have 2 rec people on their Laura and Brent that are phenomenal about creating games and such. So the play volume expansion, and then for our team, just the training. Northwoods really understands mental health of kids. A lot of the kids that come to the Value Center and had been coming, we're doing MacArthur day treatment from Northwoods. So we get to now tap into the trauma-informed care, the mental health, first
They're
aid.
expanding that continuum.
Yeah, and these guys are experts. And then if we ever do have anything, they're an email or a phone call away. And they've been nothing but respect and
Really great.
helpful coming down in our staff to their staff. So there was the culture base there really works well. If there's been one challenge on the minor side, my staff typically were coming to work with kids.
Yeah.
So everything we did was more on the hard copy, so timesheets and things like that.
Okay.
It's all portal based now. So getting staff that never had to have an email login and all, ADPs, all the things that you have to do through a computer.
Sorry, Ange.
Yeah, right. But we did build in some time and some training, and we're giving them a long runway, and we're getting better. But that's just one of the things we hadn't had to do in the past. So.
I just want to touch on that cabin thing again because it brings you back to something we chatted about earlier. I just think for so many Duluthians and people who choose Duluth as a home, they're choosing it for the outdoors, right? It's an outdoor active lifestyle. And then you talk about these kids who are in our community. This is their home also. And water is unfamiliar. Yeah. Woods are unfamiliar. Yeah. Going to the cabin, right? I don't have a cabin, but I know 10 people who do. And it can, for all of us, be a normal part of life. And yet for these youth, it's aspirational, right? It doesn't. It's like watching it in a movie. It's not part of my life. Yeah. So, as we crash land this airplane. Yeah. No, not for your daughter.
No.
Any landing you walk away from is a good one. So. Here we got a few wrap-up questions that we do with every guest. What is your go-to restaurant in Duluth? And is it breakfast, lunch, or dinner?
Well, if it's dinner and it's special occasion, we like to do Hanabi. And when you have 6 people, Hanabi is a once in a while type of endeavor.
Right, sushi guy, West Duluth sushi guy, okay.
Well, the kids were more sushi. I had to be eased into it. But.
There you go. Donuts or ice cream?
I'm an ice cream guy, and it's really vanilla ice cream cone from DQ. Nothing's fancy, just a soft serve cone, vanilla. That's
okay. And we've got our seasonal spot right on Grand Avenue, by Denford. Yeah. So, but they're after some late night event, and Chuck was working, just as he always is. So, favorite annual Duluth event.
Oh, well, for me being a West Duluth guy, it's Spirit Valley Days. We just had Duluth Days, downtown Duluth Days, formal sidewalk days. Yeah. And Chrissy Stokes does a wonderful job. You have tall ships. We have the air show. We have Grandma's Marathon. But for this West Duluth guy, it's, the parade on Thursday through the car show. And, there's music, whether it's the street dance of the past and now. And, so it's.
Let's get our plug in. It's coming up the first week of August.
It is. Well, the 31st of July is always the first weekend. So a few of these days sometimes hit July. Yeah. So our parade is the Thursday, the 31st, into, I think, the car show on Friday, into a vendor type fair on Saturday. And I think there are over 50 vendors already. So close down Grand Avenue, kind of right in front of Mr. D's there, 59th to Central, and just fill it with things to do and people and music and food. Similar to what you saw downtown.
No one does parades like West Duluth, because actually in Duluth, no one does parades except for West Duluth. So
we got to hold on to it.
Yeah, but Leo and I love walking in the Spirit Valley Days parade, so we will be there this year as well.
Perfect.
Favorite view?
You toggle, the view on the top of Cascade Quarry Park is pretty breathtaking. Inger Park too. Yeah. So any high view where you can get that panoramic view of. But being a West Duluth guy, I've never been to was it Hawk Ridge?
Yeah.
Never
Russ.
looked out.
All right. You can't be mayor.
Maybe you'll have to get me up in an airplane and show me. This one here is Hawk Ridge.
I was out for a meeting at Spirit Valley Spirit Mountain the other day.
Yeah.
That view from the chalet.
Yeah. Some of those weddings that I've been up
how nice it is out there. So, and then last question, where do you take other than the usual spots, where do you take a visitor to Duluth to show them something they probably haven't seen before?
This is where I think Canal Park shines. I guess this would be, your May-ish to October-ish, that vibrancy down there with the lake. And, even when there's some of those crazy wave days. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, it's a big, I mean, it's a weather pattern all in itself, just like you talk about on the news. So
You tell them to go stand in the waves. I'll be in the car. Tell me what you're doing.
So if they have not been from the area and they come in, Canal Park is probably a big destination.
Yeah.
Even in the wintertime, though, you do have the stuff down at Bayfront, Bentleyville. So it's a little bit of action always down that below 35, but in front of the waterfront. And is it Dan at the deck's doing a great job too.
Yeah. Well, that's, relatedly, folks, if you haven't been to the new Waterfront Plaza connecting Canal Park to Bayfront, you must. It's fabulous. And to something you said earlier, Russ, I think of how all those connections kind of go east to west within the community, and trying to connect a medical district to downtown, to Canal Park, to Bayfront, to the Craft District, to Spirit Valley. I mean, that is, the vision, and it is good for restaurant residents, good for visitors alike. So, well, thank you so much for taking time to visit with us today, especially timely with this transition with Valley Youth Center and Northwoods. So, folks, Russ Salgy with the Valley Youth Center, now with Northwoods, and I'm Mayor Roger Reinert, and we will see you again for our Welcome to Duluth podcast.
Thanks.